it's time to practice planning out programs. We're going to write a Hangman program. Now, the first step in planning this is to figure out what we want the program to do, how it should behave. Now, when Dawson describes what a program is supposed to do, that's one step in developing the pseudocode. So, what is our Hangman program supposed to do? In the program, the computer picks a secret word, and the player tries to guess it one letter at a time. The player is allowed 8 incorrect guesses, and if the player fails to guess the word in time, then the player is hanged and the game is over. So before we even begin writing any C++, let's go ahead and plan our game program. Now we're in a new text document, and I'm going to go ahead and do this in BBEdit, and you can do this in your editor in Visual Studio, with just the idea that you will be commenting out your pseudocode as you build your programming around it. So let's plan out our program. The first step is to create a group of words. Next, pick a random word from the group as the secret word. Now, while the player hasn't made too many incorrect guesses and hasn't guessed the secret word, tell the player how many incorrect guesses he or she has left, then show the player the letters that he or she has already guessed, show the player how much of the secret word he or she has guessed, next, get the player's guess. Now, while the player has entered a letter that he or she has already guessed, then we get the player's guess again. Then we add the new guess to the group of used letters. Okay, now, after that, then it'll go back to this test. Has the player made too many incorrect guesses, or has the player guessed the secret word? If one of those conditions is true, then we'll exit that particular loop. So if the player has made too many incorrect guesses, tell the player that he or she has been hanged. Otherwise, congratulate the player on guessing the secret word. Okay, that is probably detailed enough for us to go ahead and start writing our code. So we'll go ahead and begin writing our program. And we're going to go ahead and just write that program inside our pseudocode, because we can use our pseudocode as comments. So I'll go back up to the top, and I'm going to say that this is called Hangman, the classic game of Hangman. I'll go ahead and save this, and my code highlighting will begin to work gradually. Okay, I'll call this hangman.cpp. Okay. Now I'm in the setup part, and I haven't really gotten into what my program will do yet. First, I need to include the files that we need for what we'll be doing. Okay, we need IOStream, because we want to input and output to the console. We need string, because our words will be stored as strings. We need vector, because we will be using a vector to store our group of words. We also need algorithm. Now, why do we need algorithm? Well, because when the player guesses a letter, we have to search our word to determine if that letter is in that word. And algorithm provides us the best way to do that. Now, remember we said that we're going to pick a random word, and of course to do that we need ctime. And the next thing that we will be including is a file called cctype. I didn't discuss this in my pseudocode, but here's the thing. The C++ program knows the difference between uppercase and lowercase. And if our word is in uppercase and the player presses lowercase letters to guess, that is going to be a problem because it won't find that lowercase letter. So what we do to get around that is we will convert our characters to uppercase when the player makes their guess. That way we can compare apples to apples, uppercase to uppercase, when we're comparing the individual characters. So that's why we include cctype. cctype includes the function that we need for converting those characters. Okay, the last thing I do in this part of setting up the program is I'll just specify that I'm using the std namespace. And then I'll go ahead and open up my main function. Okay, in the main function, I'm going to go ahead and initialize some variables and constants for the game. Okay, the first, I want a constant integer called max wrong equals 8. This is the maximum number of incorrect guesses. And we set this as a constant just because this way if we decide we want to tweak the game, or we can always change that and we only have to change it there. Okay, now we said that we were going to create a group of words, and we're going to create that as a collection. And for this purpose, we will use a vector. We'll use a string vector called words. Now we need to add words to that vector. So we'll have words push back, guess, words push back, hangman, and words push back difficult. Okay, so you see there, we've taken our pseudocode, create a group of words, and we have done just that. And we've got our comment there for us. Now pick a random word from the group as a secret word. Okay, now in order to do that, we need to randomly shuffle our words. So the first thing we do is we seed our random number generator. So we have srand, static cast as an unsigned int, time 0, and I close all of my parentheses. Next, I'm going to use my random shuffle algorithm, random shuffle, and my range will be from words begin to words end. So that will randomly shuffle the words, and now what we'll do is we will have a string constant called the word equal to words index 0. So we've randomly shuffled our words, and then we'll just pick the first word from that random shuffle. Okay, so this will be the word, the secret word. Okay. Now, we need to set up a few more variables. We'll have an integer called wrong and set it equal to 0. And that will store our number of incorrect guesses. Then we'll have a string called so far, and the size of this string will be equal to the size of the word. And we will also in each space where in each letter for that so far string, we will initialize that with a dash. And so far will store the word guessed so far. Okay, now we need string used, the letters that have already been guessed. And we'll start that off empty. So there we go. Now, sometimes what you'll see is someone, when they're programming, they will get these inline comments lined up with each other. And that can quite often be a good practice, just because it makes it easier for you to see where the comments are and what they're doing. So that's why Dawson does that in the text. All right, now we'll go ahead and welcome our player. Okay, so we've set up our game. And now we're ready to go ahead and start the game. So we need to enter the game loop of our program. Okay, now remember how we said our loop was going to be laid out. While the player hasn't made too many incorrect guesses and hasn't guessed the secret word. So that is obviously a while loop. And the way we write that into programming language, into C++, is while, and then our test is wrong is less than max wrong, and we need to use our logical operator here because we have two conditions that need to be tested. And so far is not equal to the word. Okay, as long as those conditions are met, as in the player has not had too many incorrect guesses and they have not guessed the secret word. As long as those two conditions are met, then the game will continue looping. And so now our next step is to tell the player how many incorrect guesses he or she has left. And we do that with a cout. You have max wrong minus wrong incorrect guesses left. Okay, so we are looking at our constant max wrong, which we set to 8, and then from that we subtract the number of wrong guesses they've already made, which when the game first starts will be 0. So you have 8 incorrect guesses left. Hey, now we want to show the player what letters he or she has already guessed. So we'll have a cout. You've used the following letters. Used. End line. So this would show the player which letters he or she has already guessed, and then move on. And let's space this out a little bit more to make it somewhat more readable. Okay, next up, we want to show the player how much of the secret word he or she has guessed. So we have cout. So far, the word is, then a new line, and then our so far variable, and then an end line. Okay, next we need to get the player's guess. Now we haven't declared the variable for that yet. We haven't declared the character to store that in, and that's okay. We can do that here. Car guess. Then we have cout. Enter your guess. And we will prompt them. We'll see in that to guess. Now we need to change guess to uppercase. Since our secret word is in uppercase. And so that's what we'll do with that one. The toUpper function will change guess into all uppercase letters. And remember, we included toUpper by including our cctype file up at the top of our program. Okay, so we have gotten the guess, and now our next step is to determine if the player has entered a letter that he or she has already guessed. And we do that with another while loop. While used dot find guess is not equal to string NPOS. Okay, remember back a few videos ago, the string NPOS, if a string that you search for is empty, it'll return NPOS. So we've used our find algorithm to try to find the letter that they've typed in. If it finds it, it will say that it found that word. So this would be not true. String colon NPOS would not be true because it found the letter. Okay, so while used find guess, we would tell the player, you've already guessed guess. And then we'll prompt them to try again. Now, if you play Hangman the way my kids play Hangman, you could be a real jerk here and go ahead and increment the number of wrong guesses, but we're not going to do that. We're going to be nice. We're going to allow them to guess something they've already guessed, and we'll just tell them, now, you know what? You've already guessed that one. Let's try a different one. And we need to get that new letter, that new guess from them as guess, and then change guess to uppercase. And that's the end of that while loop. Now we can delete this line of pseudocode because we've done that here, and since we've already described it once, it should make sense what we've done there. Now we need to add the new guess to the group of used letters, and we do that with used plus equal guess. So the letter that we have just added, that we have just guessed, will get added to used, and now we will find out if that particular letter is in the word. If the word.find guess is not equal to string NPOS, we'll see out. That's right. Is in the word. Okay, our next step is going to be to update our so far variable to include that newly guessed letter. And we do that with a for loop for int I equals 0, I is less than the word dot length plus plus I. Okay, so basically what this will do is it will go through and figure out where that letter should fit in the word and then place that in our so far variable. It'll go through each character of the word and determine if that character matches the guess. If it does match the guess, it will change that particular part of so far to that letter. Okay, and the way that happens is here we have if the word I is equal to guess. Then we will update our so far string to that letter. And it will do that each time the letter occurs in that particular word. You notice we have 2 S's in guess, 2 N's in hangman, 2 F's in difficult, 2 I's in difficult, etc., etc. This would show each of those occurrences of that letter as they guessed it. Now, if that letter does not occur, then we have our else statement, and we'll tell them, sorry, guess isn't in the word. And then we'll increment our wrong counter. Okay, so that ends our if statement and our else statement. That also ends that while loop. Now we're ready to determine how the program should shut down. Is it true that the player guessed the right word, or is it true that the player had too many wrong guesses and is fit to be hanged? Okay. Let me add some more space here just to make this a little bit easier to see. Okay, so if the player has made too many guesses, we have if wrong is equal to max wrong, then we need to tell the player that he or she has been hanged. So we see out, you've been hanged. Rather than commenting otherwise, I will just change that to else, because that's our C language word for otherwise. We have else. So if they didn't exceed their max wrong, then they must have guessed the word, and we will tell them, you guessed it. Okay, now we'll go ahead and tell them what the word was, just in case they got it wrong and they want to see what the word was. The word was, the word, end line. Okay, that's the end of our program. So we'll go ahead and return 0 and close our main function. Now we'll go ahead and save it and come over here and compile it. Okay, 79 and 88, I've got some sort of a syntax error. Expected expected brace for else. Oh, I think I see what I did there. Had my code a little bit cattywonker. Oh, I see. I didn't close out my for loop. Here. Now let's try it. Nope. Now 88. Oh, silly me. I put 2 plus signs. If wrong is equal to max wrong. And let's make sure I've got that right. And another one. Expected. Yeah, you get into complicated programs like this, and you'll run into problems with, if you make a typo, you then have to go through and find out where you made that typo. And in this case, I did not close out my while loop. And this is where, honestly, an editor that allows you to fold sections of code comes in really handy. Because if you see that you can't fold your main function, then you know that there's a problem in there somewhere. Or if you fold your main function and it only goes down to a certain point, then you know roughly where the problem is. So, that done, I'll save, and let's try one more time to compile. This time we compile without any problems. So we'll run our program. Okay, starts off, it tells me I have 8 incorrect guesses left. I haven't used any letters. So far the word is, and I'm going to guess A. A is not in the word. And somehow my message telling me that that's not in the word didn't get passed. Oh, well, that's interesting. Our program's not quite behaving as expected. So we've got a problem in there somewhere, but we can fix that. Okay, let's go back into our program, and we'll just troubleshoot this a little bit. What's happening here is, first of all, I noticed that when I made a guess, it told me how many incorrect guesses I had left, which that's not the correct number. If A wasn't in it, it should have been down to 7 incorrect guesses left. And it told me what letters I used. It never told me, sorry, that word's not, that letter's not in the word. Okay, so if the word .find guess is not equal to string NPOS, it should tell me that. So we've got our for. It goes through each letter of the word. And I can actually see here where it's saying, sorry, that letter's not in the word, as it checks the additional letters. And I see what happened here. This else statement was not supposed to be matched with this if. So we close our for loop and move things over And let's make sure we've got all of our loops closed. Our for loop is closed. Our if statement is closed. Our else is closed. Our while is closed. Okay, I'm going to try to compile this. Make sure I haven't. No. Something wrong. 79 expected. Yes. Close our curly brace there. So we close that if statement. The cout is inside our if. So if the letter that the player guesses is in fact in the program, in the secret word, then it will say that's right, so the letter is in the word. Then it will update so far to include the newly guessed letter, and it'll iterate through each letter and put it in place if it's there. Still got some problems here. Expected unqualified ID before if on line 90. Okay, let's go through here step by step. Int main, if I collapse that, I'm left with shut down the program. Okay, let's look at my while loop. If I collapse that, I'm left with shut down the program. My inside while loop goes through and looks for each letter. This if statement that looks right. That looks right. While this curly brace should be closing this while loop. This curly brace should be closing okay, that curly brace should not even be there, I believe. Save it. Let's try compiling again. There we go. Now, we have 8 incorrect guesses left. It shows me how long the word is. I'm going to guess the letter A. It says, sorry, A isn't in the word. Then it shows me how many incorrect guesses I have left. So let's try I. Okay, yes, I is in it. Now watch what happens if I push I again. Because I've already guessed I, it asks me for another one. So now I'll guess D, and it's there. F is there. A, I already guessed it. B, C, U, L. Now T. T is in the word. I guessed the word. The word was difficult. Now let's do it again, and we will try to intentionally lose the game. I have 3 incorrect guesses left. Okay, I have 1 more incorrect guess. A is in there. Y shouldn't be. Okay, it says, sorry, Y isn't in the word. Then it says you've been hanged, and it tells me what the word was. Okay, so that is step by step. We are planning out our program, how it's going to work, and then we go and apply the actual programming language to it. Now, you notice that I struggled a little bit with some misplaced curly braces, code that wouldn't compile. That is a pretty normal thing. The key is you need to be able to read what the error message is when you compile it and figure out how to resolve that issue. Um, Making sure that you've properly lined up your curly braces, when you're opening and closing if statements, while loops, do loops, else statements. That's really, really crucial. If you mess up on that, it does cause problems. It will cause headaches. Sometimes it will take a long time to work out those problems. But if you keep at it, and if you're using a program that allows you to fold and unfold or collapse and expand sections of code the way my program allows me to, it truly makes it much, much easier. So if you have any problems or questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all next week. Have a great weekend.